Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to my 2019 stats in review. I got really slack at the end of the year and forgot to put these at the end of my month books beside my bed videos, so I'm just going to go through the entire thing with you guys and I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm not going to screenshot the charts and pop them on the screen. I'm actually going to flip the camera around and film on my laptop and just show you everything because I know Tracy was interested in how I keep track of everything. Essentially, I use a spreadsheet and I don't use one that I've created myself because I have no skills in that department whatsoever. I have for the last 3 or 4 years been using one by Brock from Let's Read, and I'll put a link to this year's one down below. This year I've decided to, in 2020, I've decided to try a different spreadsheet, which is one that Ali from Hardback Hoarder has created, and I'm not great with change and I'm still tempted to go back to Brock's spreadsheet. So I've got copies of both, but I think I'm going to try this a little bit differently because it's going to make it a tiny bit easier to keep track of things by month. It's totally your preference which one you want to do because they all the different spreadsheets, and there are so many out there. I'm going to put a link to 3 that I've found down below for you so you can check those ones out. But everyone sort of does things a little bit differently. I think the difference with Ali's one, which I quite like, is it has a readathon tracker and it's incorporated into the reading wrap-up as well as everything else. So it just makes it a little bit easier for me because I do participate in a lot of readathons. So without further ado, I'm going to flip this screen over. I'm going to record the screen and you guys can see exactly what my 2019 stats were, as well as a little bit about how the book tracker worked last year. But yeah, if you are interested in the 2020 ones, I will leave links down below so you can check those out. And Brock definitely has a couple of videos showing how the trackers work. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so this is the 2019 reading spreadsheet created by Brock Roberts from Let's Read. Here you have a list of all the people who contributed to it. Across the bottom you have Getting Started tab, you have categories, which I added a lot to. I won't have as much detail, especially in terms of things like publisher, who I added a lot to this year. I'm not going to be tracking things as in depth as previous years. You have an acquisitions page, which is where I track everything that I bring in. I do use this for some of my book haul revisited books, but primarily I use my YouTube videos. I go back and I watch through them and double check what I've hauled. The only thing I do in future years is go back in and mark things that I read that I hadn't read in 2019. So I'll use this when I am doing my book haul revisited. The book survey is where you fill in everything that you've read, the title, when you start and finish it, the status, the author, gender, etc. There's a whole lot of different things in here that you can fill in and track. And mine goes down for a while because I read a lot of books this year. There's a D&F section which I didn't use. The summary is sort of where you get some of the stats for the year. The charts is where we're going to focus because this is where I pull all of my yearly stats from. So here you can see what my genre wheel looks like. It's awfully colourful and I love it. You've got my format, which this year I've read a lot more different formats. I've read a lot more audiobooks, which it doesn't seem like a lot because I think it's... Oh, actually, the audiobooks in here, it's hard to track them because I primarily read the audiobooks with the book in front of me. So I think I track whether it's an ebook or a trade paperback, but I have read more audiobooks this year. The length of the book, I primarily read novels. That's just my preferred format, but I've read more novellas this year and I thought that was it's a really good thing that I've read a few more different formats than previous. I've also read more digital books this year. I've been enjoying reading on my Kindle. My average page length is 300 to 399 books. And the majority of the titles I read were from 2018 because I was primarily reading my 2018 backlist that I didn't read in 2018. So 2018 a lot there. My publisher wheel is bright and colourful and full of a whole lot of different publishers. Allen Unwin and Kindle tend to be my top 2 because I have started using Kindle and Kindle Unlimited a lot more, which has been really good. Primarily I purchase my books because I can't help myself. I have very limited self-control. Oops. The location just sort of gives you a breakdown on where things have been acquired from. I did get a few free books this year from publishers and gifts and whatnot, but primarily it's all purchased. Now, for some reason, my 5-star books didn't track in this tracker, and by the time I realized that, I just couldn't be bothered going back in or restarting again. I had too much data in the chart. But there was probably about 25 books that were 5-star reads, but primarily I gave things 4 stars, and if people are concerned by that, it's mostly, and if that bothers people that I give a lot of 4 stars out, I pick my books pretty carefully. Here you can see a breakdown of the books that I read per month, as well as page count per month. So while January wasn't here you can see a breakdown of the books completed per month. July was my best reading month. February was my worst. And you also have the pages completed per month as well. Author gender, I primarily read female authors. Protagonist gender is a little bit more even, particularly if you take into account the ensemble. But yeah, still primarily female characters as the main characters in my books that I choose to read. Again, not that surprising. This year, I have read far more adult books than I have young adult books. Although if you add up all of the kids' middle grade and YA, it's a little bit closer. But in past years, I have definitely not read as many adult books, and I think that's a good change. I need to read more books around the world. That's just a given. There's a diversity chart. Series versus standalone. This stuff, it doesn't work as well because I don't keep as close track on that. I sort of just do that by knowing which books are part of a series. I don't track my DNF books. I don't include them on my book lists, so they're not in there. 20% of my TBR this year was books that I read in the previous year. The majority of the books that I read are set on Earth. Tells you I haven't read enough sci-fi books this year. But yeah, I think that is everything from the stats. You can go across the bottom and there's series tracking and new releases and authors and things like that. I don't really use those at all. And really quickly, I can show you what the format will look like for this year, if it loads. Okay, so this is Ali from Hardback Quarters spreadsheet, and it's essentially very similar. Doesn't have the same amount of information. I'm not tracking publishers in here, but it does have a notes section which I'm using to keep track of just little things about the book so I can refer back to them. And it also has a readathon column and whether or not this is a reread. So that works for me. The reason, if the book's acquired is, again, very similar. Haven't acquired anything yet. But I like this monthly stats page, which actually breaks everything down by month. So this will come in really handy for the end of month wrap-ups. And the stats page looks a little bit different. And I actually like that the genres read are contained because I went very, very specific. I think I will have more chance to go specific in the notes section and when I talk about them rather than trying to track every tiny little detail. I think it'll just make it easy to see. So this is sort of what you'll be seeing next year. So those are my 2020 stats. As I've said in previous videos, I had a really great reading year in 2019. I really can't complain. I'm looking forward to seeing what 2020 brings in terms of bookish things. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below. But I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.